Good morning, class. I miss you all. It's Mrs. Morgan. I'm sure that you have been missing my bright and shining face, so here it is, maybe not so shiny. Anyway, I hope you're all surviving your quarantine and you're staying home from school. I've been putting quite a bit of work out for you. We had an Act 2 essay that was due last week, and some no red ink that I gave to you on pronoun antecedent agreement, and I attached a YouTube video of a different teacher explaining what it is. But I figured for today's work, which was on the post for yesterday on Teams, we're going to do a practice text analysis response. So it's part 3 of the English Regents, which you'll take next year. We've done a couple of them already. It is an essay, even though it says 2 to 3 paragraphs. It does require an intro and a conclusion, but you want to try to be able to do it, read it, annotate it, find a central idea, and pick a writing strategy and write it in about a 40-minute time period. Now, we're not there yet. I know it's going to take a little longer than that, but I thought we would read it together and go over exactly how you write it. I'll ask my famous question. Where are my glasses? Up, as usual, right on top of my head. So here we go. So the text analysis response has a task, and the task is right here. And it says, your task is to closely read the text provided and write a well-developed text-based response of 2 to 3 paragraphs. In it, now remember, 2 to 3 paragraphs has to have a intro and a conclusion. In it, you're going to identify a central idea in the text. What is that? A central idea is very simply an idea that you find in the beginning, the middle, and the end of the text, something that's constant throughout the passage. And then analyze how the author's use of one and only one writing strategy, you don't get extra credit if you write more than one, develops the central idea. Now, it could be a literary element, or a literary technique, or it could even be a rhetorical device like ethos, pathos, or logos. But remember that some of them are kind of so obvious that they're probably the best ones to write about. For example, you have 2 characters in this passage, so you can write about characterization, which is how the author develops the character. You've got a setting, so you could write about setting. If you see any similes or metaphors, comparisons, using or not using, like or as, you could write about those. You can always write about tone, because when the author has a certain attitude toward the passage, that's tone. Diction, remember we did diction when we did our analyzing songs way back when we first met in September. You could find word choice, and that's diction, to say what the tone is. So you've got lots of these, but remember, you only have to write about one. Writing about more than one causes confusion for the reader and also kind of makes it look like you can't follow directions. Okay? Then you're going to pick evidence. So why don't you grab a highlighter or a pen, and let's read the passage together. And then as you see either characterization or setting or a simile or a metaphor or tone or diction, certain words that you feel convey the tone, why don't we highlight it as we're reading so that you don't have to go back and do it again? Because remember, we want to give about 45 minutes to this entire task. That's reading, annotating, and then writing the essay. A little ambitious right now, but by next year, you've got to get to it. So why don't we flip it over and let's look at the text. Now remember, I gave you an outline at the end of it, which basically helps you write the entire piece. Okay, my glasses again so I can see, and let's begin. He came into the room to shut the windows while we were still in bed, and I saw he looked ill. He was shivering, his face was white, and he walked slowly as though it ached to move. "What's the matter, Schatz?" "I've got a headache." "You better go back to bed." "No, I'm all right." "You go to bed. I'll see you when I'm dressed." But when I came downstairs, he was dressed, sitting by the fire, looking a very sick and miserable boy of 9 years. Hint, hint, are they characterizing this poor young 9-year-old boy? When I put my hand on his forehead, I knew he had a fever. "You go up to bed," I said. "You're sick." I'm all right, he said. When the doctor came, he took the boy's temperature. What is it? I asked him. 102. Downstairs, the doctor left 3 different medicines in different colored capsules with instructions for giving them. One was to bring down the fever, another a purgative. Ooh, what's that one on top of the word purgative? Oh, it means they provided the definition down below. A purgative is a laxative. Ooh, you know what that means. It helps them poop. Anyway, the third to overcome an acid condition. The germs of influenza can only exist in an acid condition, he said. He explained, sorry. He seemed to know all about influenza and said there was nothing to worry about if the fever did not go above 104 degrees. This was a light epidemic of flu, and there was no danger if you avoided pneumonia. Back in the room, I wrote the boy's temperature down and made a note of the time to give the various capsules. Do you want me to read to you? All right, if you want to, said the boy. His face was very white and there were dark areas under his eyes. He lay still in the bed and seemed very detached from what was going on. Hint, hint, characterization sometimes comes in the form of the character's actions. I read aloud from Howard Pyle's Book of Pirates, but I could see he was not following what I was reading. How do you feel, Schatz? I asked him. Just the same so far, he said. I sat at the foot of the bed and read to myself while I waited for it to be time to give another capsule. It would have been natural for him to go to sleep, but when I looked up, he was looking at the foot of the bed, looking very strangely. Why don't you go to sleep? I'll wake you up for the medicine. I'd rather stay awake. After a while, he said to me, You don't have to stay in here with me, Papa, if it bothers you. It doesn't bother me. No, I mean, you don't have to stay if it's going to bother you. Sorry. I thought perhaps he was a little lightheaded after giving him the prescribed capsules at 11 o'clock. I went out for a while. It was a bright, cold day, and the ground covered with a sleet that had frozen, so it seemed as if all the bare trees, the bushes, the cut brush, and all the grass and the bare ground had been varnished with ice. I took the young Irish setter for a little walk up the road and along a frozen creek, but it was difficult to stand or walk on the glassy surface, and the red dog slipped and slithered, and I fell twice, hard, once dropping my gun and having it slide away over the ice. We flushed a covey, another number, a covey is a flock, bless you, Gabby, of quail under the high clay bank with overhanging brush, and I killed 2 as they went out of sight over the top of the bank. Some of the covey lit in trees, but most of them scattered into brush piles, and it was necessary to jump on the ice-coated mounds of brush several times before they would flush. Coming out while you were poised unsteadily on the icy, springy brush, they made difficult shooting, and I killed 2, missed 5, and started back, pleased to have found a covey close to the house and happy there were so many left to find on another day. At the house, they said the boy had refused to let anyone come in the room. You can't come in, he said. You mustn't get what I have. I went up to him and found him in exactly the position I had left him, white-faced, but with the tops of his cheeks flushed with the fever, staring still as he had stared at the foot of the bed. I took his temperature. What is it? Something like 100, I said. It was 102 4/10. It was 102, he said. Who said so? The doctor. Your temperature's all right, I said. It's nothing to worry about. I don't worry, he said, but I can't keep from thinking. Don't think, I said. Just keep it easy. I'm taking it easy, he said, and he looked straight ahead. He was evidently holding tight onto himself about something. Also characterization. Psst. Take this with water. Do you think it'll do any good? Of course it will. I sat down and I opened the pirate book and commenced to read, but I could see he was not following, so I stopped. About what time do you think I'm going to die? He asked. What? About how long will it be before I die? You aren't gonna die. What's the matter with you? Oh, yes, I am. I heard him say 102. People don't die with a fever of 102. That's a silly way to talk. I know they do. At school in France, the boys told me you can't live with 44 degrees, and I've got 102. Sorry, gotta turn the page. He had been waiting to die all day, ever since 9 o'clock in the morning. You poor Schatz, I said. Poor old Schatz. It's like miles and kilometers. You aren't going to die. That's a different thermometer. On that thermometer, 37 is normal. On this kind, it's 98. Are you sure? Absolutely, I said. It's like miles and kilometers. You know, like how many kilometers we make when we do 70 miles in the car? Oh, he said, but his gaze at the foot of the bed relaxed slowly. The hold over himself relaxed too. Finally, and the next day, it was very slack, and he cried very easily at little things that were of no importance. And that's by Ernest Hemingway, A Day's Wait. And it was written in 1933. Good grief, that's old. But it's still kind of a cute story, I think, and that's why I picked it. So, central ideas. Let's brainstorm some central ideas. Now, I don't want to give them to you, but think about the age of the little boy and think about his dad. We have to assume it's his dad. And think about maybe what was going through the little boy's head. And think if you can grasp a central idea from how the little boy was thinking and his age. You can also kind of imagine that point of view comes into play here because we only get the papa's point of view. I'm assuming it's his dad and not his grandpa, although my kids call my father Papa, except for Gabby. She calls him Papu. But anyway, point of view is a lit term, by the way. Hint, hint. So other central ideas? Well, you can think about maybe differences in point of view, differences in misunderstanding something, differences in holding on to something that confuses you, okay? Or just the fact that he's so young and therefore doesn't really understand the severity or the graveness of his illness. So think about a central idea, something that's in the beginning, the middle, and the end, and his confusion about the severity of his illness, the boy, Schatz, I call him Schatz, like that, but it's Schatz, follows right through, starts off the passage and ends the passage. Now, I gave you an outline, here it is, and you've used this outline before, where you tag, as we always do, the piece you're writing about. So in A Day's Wait, Ernest Hemingway presents, and here you give a little bit of background information, the story of a little boy who was sick. You talk about maybe that a boy is confused because he thinks he's going to die, because he doesn't understand the severity of his illness. You give a couple of lines, 2 to 3 lines of background information. Then insert author. Hemingway, or Ernest Hemingway, don't call him Ernest though, utilizes, and then you pick one. So like I said, you have a character, so you have characterization, you have a setting, you now have point of view, because it's told from the papa's point of view, you have lots of things. You have a little bit of irony, you have a little bit of, and again, I don't want to give them to you, and actually on the task checklist, the second bullet gives you a list that you could use, right? I'm trying to see if I could, because now I don't have my glasses on as usual. Right here. It says on the second bullet, examples are characterization, conflict. Nobody ever writes about denotation and connotation. Metaphor, simile, irony, language use, that's the diction, point of view, setting, structure, symbolism, theme, tone. You could do diction, whatever. And then you're going to pick your strong and thorough evidence. I like to say 3 is the minimum, even though the outline only gives you spots for 2, because the more the merrier as far as I'm concerned. But also, strong and thorough command of evidence gets you a higher score. So, back to our outline. Hemingway utilizes blank, and you fill in whatever lit device you feel most comfortable writing about. And remember, you pick one and only one. You don't want to write about more than one because you'll confuse the reader, which is me, and also it looks like you can't follow directions, which is never cool. Because when you write this for the Regents exam next year, whatever teacher you're going to have in 11th grade is not allowed to read your essay. A different teacher who might not even know you is going to read it, and you don't want to look like you can't follow directions. So you insert your lit device, and then in order to convey the central idea of, and then you pick your central idea. Okay? That should be the end of your intro paragraph. Now your body paragraph again repeats the lit device that the author uses to convey the central idea is blank. Okay? Then you give some background information. Then you put your first piece of evidence is. And when you're done writing the evidence, the textual evidence, in parentheses, you put the line number, which is right here. That's the only thing you have to put. You don't have to put Hemingway. You just have to put the line number. Okay? Then you could say, for example, you could say in other words, you could say whatever you want. Then you explain how that is an example of whatever lit term you mentioned because it's comparing something, it's personifying something, it's characterizing something, it's demonstrating something, whatever your lit term was that you used. Clearly this shows, and now you connect it back to the central idea. The next paragraph, so now you start a new paragraph, you indent it. I hope you're doing Times New Roman double spaced, because you know my eyes, I can't see. Continues to be used, okay, your lit device continues to be used to support the central idea of blank. You give your next background information, you put the quote, you cite it with the line number, and you compare it, you personify it, you show the word choice, have whatever lit term you use, and then again, you connect back. I'd throw a third one in, even though it's not on the outline, because the more the merrier, and command of evidence is a big factor on the rubric. And your conclusion, which could be its own paragraph, and then you've got your 3 body paragraphs. It shouldn't take you that long to do it. I think it's an interesting passage. If you have any questions, you can email me or you can write me a question on posts in Teams. I've been posting every single day to you. I'm getting many responses, but I'm not getting everybody. I like to hear from everybody. I also have an assignment on No Red Ink, like I said, which is pronoun antecedent agreement. That was due on Friday, and it's really important that you guys keep up with your schoolwork. Gabby's been here doing all of her schoolwork, and, you know, I don't know when we're coming back to school, but you don't want to come back and be bombarded, certainly. I'm here for you. I do miss you. I hope you enjoyed my video. I'm eating like a pig because I'm home and I'm around all kinds of junk food, so that's upsetting. Hope we go back to school soon. I like structure. I like to be somewhere at a certain time and eat my lunch at a certain time and not just eat whenever I feel like eating, which is what tends to happen. Molly's mad at us for being home. Hey, Molly, want to come say hello? Molly doesn't like us being here. Gabby's taking a virtual gymnastics class through her gym at 10:30, so I'm going to try to post this now. And I will look forward to some questions from you, and I will look forward to seeing this essay by Wednesday. I will edit the assignment and make it due on Wednesday now that I explained it to you. And don't forget the Act 2 essay was already due, so I hope you did it. All right, I miss you. Hope you enjoyed my video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.